All right. So Jim, here's the next question. It's from Greg, and he says it's a what if question that we might have fun with. When Disney was planning its major organizational changes in the early 80s, were there other candidates that the board of directors was considering besides Michael Eisner for CEO? And if so, who was the leading candidate? And what would Disney look like today under that person's leadership?
Well, I know of two guys who actually, well, one that wanted to buy the company, and that was Jim Henson. Uh, during the time.
Where was Jim Henson gonna come up with that kind of money?
Well, you have to understand this is Disney 1983. All right, in fact, that was the thing. Saul Steinberg, and Ivan Boesky, when they were looking at Disney film library, real estate, their estimate, if they busted up for parts, they could probably get $600 million. And Henson, on the other hand, this is Jim Henson at the height of his powers.
Oh, so he had
And
several tens of millions of dollars.
yeah, and but
Yeah,
but the whole
okay.
notion of, more to the point, he could go to Wall Street. In fact, that was the thing of, he had his longtime agent, Bertie Brillstein, the same gentleman who represented John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd, and just, and more to the point, Bernie could always find people who had money.
Hmm.
And the whole notion was that Jim wanted to sell the idea that, look, the Walt Disney Company hasn't had a Walt Disney for about 12 or 15 years. I'm an idea guy. I could be the creative that the company needs. And more to the point, I've run my own entertainment company, that it would be, it wouldn't be that much of a jump.
It'd be bigger,
Conversely,
but same industry, right? Okay.
yeah, conversely though, the gentleman who actually approached the board and said, look, if you want somebody to run the company who actually knows how to run this company, that would be me. And that's Dick Nunes, the guy who was in charge of Walt Disney World. And everyone kind of nodded and smiled because they didn't want to offend Dick, because at this point, Dick was thought to be irreplaceable in Florida. And it was
Hmm.
just sort of like, Dick, we need you there. I mean, we need somebody to come in here. But yeah, Disney, for a time, the whole notion of what Disney needs is another Walt. It
Huh.
was, that they had, um, frankly, in Card Walker and Ray Watson, and to a lesser extent Roy O, they had good lieutenants. They weren't idea men. They were guys who were great at, if the idea man told them this is what I want to do, they'd figure out a way to do it. And so it's the notion of, we need an idea guy. So the interesting thing is that they supposedly, the board was like, could we ask George Lucas? Could we ask Steven Spielberg? And in the end, the financial guys pushed back really hard. And it's like, look, I understand that you want a creative, but we need is a business guy. We need somebody who has shown that they're both creative and has done business. And that was the interesting thing about Michael Eisner, is that during his tenure at Paramount, he had shown that he could think big in a creative way. He could think outside of the box. So forgive the cliche. In fact, it's been kind of interesting to watch, just like in the last week to 10 days. There's been, the announcement that Disney has finally acquired the rights to Indiana Jones, and
Hey,
and
didn't you think they owned them? I mean, I
well,
thought they owned it.
they here was the thing, that they had to undo everything that Michael Eisner had done to get the rights to make Indiana Jones at the first Raiders of the Lost Ark movie at Paramount. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you know the story, but um, when Steven Spielberg made Jaws and didn't know how it was going to do, he was so nervous, he got on a plane and flew to Hawaii and figured, I'm as far away from Hollywood as possible, and if it flops, nobody can get to me. And and just hoping against hope that people would start to call him and tell him how well it was doing, and that's what actually happened.
Okay.
So now jump ahead a year, and George Lucas is about to release Star Wars, And same thing. It's like, I've spent all this money and I'm really nervous. Is it actually going to work? Spielberg, I says, I know exactly what you need to do. Come with me. We're going to
We're
Hawaii.
going to Hawaii. Road
All
trip.
right. So,
Kidding.
and the two of them are in Hawaii when Star Wars opened stateside, and it's this monster hit, and the phone calls come, and it's just sort of like, and Spielberg and Lucas are sitting there talking about, wow, we've just made giant hit movies. What would you like to do? How would you cash in this chip? And the two of them kind of admitted that what they really wanted to do was make a James Bond movie. That they had
Really?
seen these movies in the 60s and they'd loved them, and it wouldn't be
Oh,
cool to
yeah,
be
yeah,
able to make
yeah.
a James Bond movie. But it's like, the Brocolis will never let us do it. They've got
Yeah.
the rights locked up so much. But they're sitting there on the beach making this giant sandcastle. It's like, all right, so we can't have James Bond, but wouldn't it be cool to do some kind of adventure like that? And they're on the spot together on the beach, made up the character of Indiana Jones and sort of knocked
Really?
out. So that's the problem. This is a character two of the most powerful people in Hollywood invented while they're together, while they're on the beach. So they
One afternoon on the beach in Hawaii.
yeah. So
Wow.
and then they then come back and they have this idea for this movie, this great character that's going to lend itself to a series, but they decide, for the first time, we invented it, we want to own the character, we want the financials they were asking for, nobody in the business had ever asked for before. What they basically wanted was a third of the box office between the two of them, and with the other third going to the studio, and then the final third going to the exhibitors. And they were
Wow.
willing to waive the director fees, the producer fees, but they wanted the money. And they went to every studio in town who kind of blinked to them across the table. And it's like, well, I got George Lucas and Steven Spielberg in my office, and it got this great story, but these great characters, but this crazy idea of a deal. And everybody said no, and only Eisner sat there, worked the numbers, and realized, okay, if it's a giant hit, we will make the money that we would have made off of, if we'd owned this outright. So it's like, it's a risk worth taking, but Eisner set up these impossible conditions. I mean, they had to, they went in with about a half of the budget they asked for. They had a 100-day shooting schedule, and they couldn't go over every day. There was a penalty built in.
Okay.
But that was the thing. When Disney bought Star Wars, they got George Lucas's half of Indiana Jones, which meant they had to negotiate with Spielberg.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, because they didn't know. Oh, I see it. Yeah, so they didn't know
You know,
both. Interesting.
and then just the interesting
So,
thing.
so wait. So at that point, they owned. I'm trying to think of 16 and a half. They owned 83.5% of Indiana Jones.
Make sure you get the hat. So like, so that must have been an interesting negotiation. More to the point, they had Paramount, which had all of Eisner's ironclad language. They eventually cut sort of the same deal that they had to do for with Paramount in regard to the Marvel movies. They basically had I mean, if you think about, Disney paid Paramount in advance. They gave them $150 million for the rights. It's like, we're paying $150 million not to make the Avengers and Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
It's like, and that's your share of this is a hit movie. And for Paramount's point of view, it's like, wow, we make a profit off of
$150 million, no risk. Yeah.
no risk. It's like, I love this. So that's the understanding for the Indiana Jones deal. They continue to own the first four movies. They'll make any money should those ever go into re-release or Blu-ray, that sort of thing. And they also get the unstated financial percentage of Indy, should the film go forward. In fact, and right now, that's the other bit of news that that Disney doesn't even want to talk about Indy yet, because they want it's so crucial that Star Wars 7 be set up properly. All they're willing to say is, look, Indiana Jones, yeah, we're thinking of doing another movie. We're 2 or 3 years out from it. Stop asking, and
Because
that
I think Harrison Ford's already signed up for it, right?
well, that was
Or
the
he's like
other.
he's indicated that he's open to having the conversation.
Well, that's where it got that again. You want to talk about adding more pressure to the negotiations with both Spielberg and Paramount. Supposedly, what when they went to Ford and said, "Hey, we want you to reprise Han Solo in our Star Wars 7, 8, 9," he was like, "Okay, but I would really like another shot at Indiana Jones. I don't
Four
think,
left a bad taste in everyone's mouth, and that's not
yeah,
how you want to go out. Yeah.
no, that's it exactly. So it's
All
like,
right.
tell you what, if you agree to make another Indiana Jones movie, I will come back as Han Solo." And so it's like, so again, now do you understand why the
Yeah.
production date slid back 6 months? Why they
Yeah.
brought in
Yeah.
another
Okay.
writer? That there's a lot of plates spinning here.
Yeah.
So.
Interesting. That's a, so they did they actually consider Lucas or for the role? Or was it
In
just one of those things where it's like, here's 15 names that we should go through in this meeting?
well, I mean, they in both cases they made phone calls, and what was kind of interesting is that Eisner, who had already made a run at the job a year earlier,
Mm-hmm.
found out through it was Spielberg, and Spielberg, he turned around and said, "Look, you don't want the job. Can you put in a good word for me?" And in fact, in the end, both Lucas and Spielberg went to the Disney board and petitioned for Michael Eisner, just basically saying, "Look, this is the guy we made Raiders of the Lost Ark with. He's very innovative financially. He's a great creative. He's a passionate guy. This is who you want running your company." And so, in a weird sort of way, George Lucas and Michael and Spielberg are responsible for Eisner getting the job.
Ah, cool.
Because the board reached out to them and said, "Hey, you want to run us?" It's like, "No, but we know a guy that we
But
you
I
should."
know a guy. I know it.
Yeah.
That's
So.
a great story. Yeah, a small world.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jim.
Hmm.